My name is Hannah Pierce. I'm 29. And last Monday, 5 days before Thanksgiving, I got a text that should have been ridiculous. Except it wasn't. It was the kind of text that doesn't just ruin a holiday. It rearranges how you see the person you've been loving. It peels the paint off the walls of your relationship and shows you what's underneath. I was at work when it came in. Nothing dramatic. No ominous phone call. No sirens. Just a vibration against my desk while I was halfway through an email chain about a vendor contract nobody actually cared about. I glanced down, expecting something normal. A meme. A, "What do you want for dinner?" A complaint about traffic. Instead, I saw his name, Logan, and the first line hit like cold water. "I'm bringing my ex to your family's Thanksgiving. She has nowhere to go. Deal with it." I read it once. Then again, slower, like maybe I'd misunderstood the tone, like maybe my brain had swapped a word. But the words didn't change. My ex, your family, deal with it. My throat tightened so fast it felt physical, like my body was trying to swallow a sound. Logan and I had been together for 2.5 years. Long enough that our toothbrushes had permanently merged into one cup. Long enough that his hoodie lived on my chair and my hair ties lived in his car. Long enough that my mother had started saying things like, "When you two have kids," as if it was already scheduled. He'd been to 3 of my family holidays already. My parents loved him. Not in a casual way either. My dad called him kiddo and offered him second helpings like he was already family. My mom bought the brand of coffee he liked and kept it stocked just in case Logan stops by. Last year, on Christmas Eve, my mom had pulled me aside in the kitchen while everyone else watched a movie. "Bring him this year," she'd said softly. "Promise me. I have a feeling he's the one." And I had promised, because at the time, I believed it. So when I saw that text, it wasn't just the sentence itself. It was the way it was written like a command, like I was an inconvenience in my own life. My fingers hovered over the screen. I could feel my pulse in the pads of them. Then the second message came in, like he realized the first one sounded harsh and decided the solution was to add more. "Hey babe, Mia's having a rough time. Her family basically disowned her after that thing with her stepmom. Long story, she literally has nowhere to go for Thanksgiving. I told her she could come with us to your parents. I know it's awkward, but I can't let her spend it alone. We're adults. We can handle this." Mia, his ex-girlfriend. They'd dated 4 years before me. It was always framed as ancient history, something finished, something tidy. We ended on good terms, Logan had told me when we first started dating. Same friend group, it's not weird. And at first, it wasn't. She'd existed in the background like a faded photo in a box you never open. A name that popped up on Instagram. A comment here. A mutual friend's birthday dinner there. But recently she'd been louder. More texts. More crises. More late-night calls that made Logan step onto our balcony, voice lowered, like he was handling something fragile. The same Mia who coincidentally started having life emergencies the moment Logan and I got serious. The same Mia who was always going through something, always needing comfort, always needing a little piece of him. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. There were a million things I could have typed. No, absolutely not. Are you out of your mind? Why are you even still this involved with her? Why is this my family's problem? But one phrase kept echoing in my head, louder than any argument I could pick. Deal with it. It wasn't a request. It wasn't, is it okay if... It wasn't even, can we talk about this? It was a decision already made, and my role in it was compliance. I sat there, frozen, listening to the office around me. Keyboards clicking, someone laughing near the coffee machine, while my entire chest felt like it was filling with sand. And then something in me went very still. Not calm, not peaceful, just still, like the moment before glass shatters. I typed 3 words. "I'll let them know." That was it. No follow-up, no softening, no explanation. Just a sentence that looked cooperative enough to keep him relaxed. And it worked, immediately. His reply came fast, satisfied. "Knew you'd understand, babe." Understand. Like I was some kind of emotional support device trained to accept whatever he decided. I set my phone down and stared at my computer screen without actually seeing it. My reflection in the black edge of the monitor looked normal. Hair pulled back. Neutral expression. A woman who could be thinking about spreadsheets. But inside there was a tight, expanding sensation, like I'd just realized I'd been walking around a cliff edge for months and only now looked down. Because this wasn't only about Mia. If I'm honest, it had never been only about Mia. It was about how Logan had been inching into control without calling it control. Where we ate, what time we left, which friends we saw, how long we stayed, which weekends were his family weekends and which were mine. I told myself it was compromise. That's what grown-ups do, right? You bend, you adjust. You don't make everything a fight. But reading Deal With It, I felt something click into place so cleanly it was almost terrifying. He didn't see me as a partner. He saw me as the path of least resistance. And suddenly I didn't feel like arguing. I didn't feel like pleading. I felt like stepping out of the blast radius. I picked my phone back up and opened my messages with my mom. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. Because Logan thought I was about to tell my parents something like, "Hey, Logan's bringing Mia." He thought I was going to do the uncomfortable part for him. Smooth it over, make it palatable, make his choice acceptable. But I didn't type that. Not even close. I wrote, "Hey, Mom, something came up with work. Emergency server migration that has to happen over the holiday weekend. I won't make it to Thanksgiving. Logan might still come, though." I read it once before sending. It was believable. I work in a field where emergency can mean anything, and my family has heard enough tech horror stories from me that they don't ask too many questions. My mom replied within minutes, "Oh, honey, that's terrible. But Logan's still welcome, of course. We already bought his favorite wine." Favorite wine. Of course she did. My chest tightened again, but this time it wasn't shock. It was clarity, sharp and cold. I stared at her message and realized something else. I hadn't been wanting to go to Thanksgiving this year the way I used to. Not because I didn't love my family, because the last few months with Logan had felt like walking on eggshells wrapped in silk. Everything looked fine, but I was constantly adjusting myself so he wouldn't get annoyed, wouldn't accuse me of overreacting, wouldn't say I was making drama. And now he was trying to volunteer my family's holiday like it was a spare couch he could lend out. Without me. Without asking. With 3 words that told me exactly how much my opinion mattered. Deal with it. I closed my laptop at work early and told my boss I wasn't feeling well. On the drive home, the sky looked too bright for how heavy my thoughts were. Cars moved around me like nothing had changed in the world. But something had changed. The moment I walked into my apartment, I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't throw on a comfort show. I didn't call a friend to rant. I opened my laptop. I went to a travel site, and I booked a 5-day trip, leaving Wednesday night and coming back Sunday. Somewhere warm. Somewhere far enough that no one could drop by to talk. I used the money I'd been saving for Logan's Christmas present, the expensive watch he'd been hinting about, the joke he'd made twice about how it would look good on him, and how I always know what to get him. As I clicked confirm, my hands didn't shake. That was the strangest part. I didn't feel reckless. I felt decisive, like a door had closed quietly behind me. Then I changed one more setting on my phone. I turned off my read receipts, and I waited. Because if Logan wanted me to deal with it, he was about to find out what that really looked like. If that text had come out of nowhere, maybe I would have fought harder. Maybe I would have called him immediately, demanded an explanation, tried to reason my way back into feeling respected. But it didn't come out of nowhere. That's the part that bothered me the most once the shock wore off. When I replayed the last few months in my head, the message didn't feel like a surprise. It felt like a conclusion. Logan and I met when I was 26. A mutual friend's birthday dinner. Loud restaurant, too many people, the kind of place where conversations overlap and nobody really listens. Logan stood out because he wasn't trying to. He wasn't the loudest guy at the table or the one telling stories for attention. He just leaned back, observed, and chimed in when he had something to say. At the time, it felt refreshing. He was confident without being flashy, calm, decisive, the kind of man who ordered without looking at the menu too long and seemed to know exactly what he wanted. I mistook that for maturity. Our relationship moved at a steady pace. Not rushed, not stagnant. He stayed over more often. His clothes appeared in my laundry basket. We split groceries, split bills, split weekends between his place and mine. When my lease ended, moving in together felt like the obvious next step. And in the beginning, it really was good. Logan liked structure, plans, schedules. He always knew what we were doing Friday night, where we were going Saturday, who we were seeing Sunday. I told myself it was nice not having to think about everything all the time. If he picked the restaurant, I didn't have to. If he chose the movie, I didn't have to scroll endlessly. If he decided we were spending Thanksgiving with my family and Christmas with his, that was fine. Fair, even. Except slowly, without me realizing it, his decisions stopped sounding like suggestions. They became statements. We're going to my parents this weekend. We'll eat at that place instead. Let's not hang out with them tonight. And when I hesitated, when I asked why, he'd sigh slightly. Not angry, just disappointed. I just think it makes more sense. You're overthinking it. It's not that big of a deal. Those phrases were effective. They made me feel unreasonable for questioning him. So I stopped. I adjusted. I told myself this was what compromise looked like. Mia existed in that space too. At first, she was a name that came up casually, a shared memory, a mutual friend's story. Logan never hid her existence, which I appreciated. When I asked about their past, he didn't dodge the question. "We dated for 4 years," he said once, stirring his coffee. "It just didn't work. No big blow-up. We're better as friends." I believed him. She showed up at group gatherings occasionally. Polite, careful, always just a little too aware of where Logan was in the room. I noticed things early on, but I dismissed them. How she'd text him during our date nights about something important. How he'd always answer, even if briefly. How he'd step away to take calls when she was upset. "She's had a rough life," he explained. "I'm kind of all she has sometimes." That sentence stuck with me. Not because it was cruel, because it was revealing. Somewhere along the way, Logan had positioned himself as her anchor, her safety net, and I had accepted it because I didn't want to be the insecure girlfriend who couldn't handle a man having a past. But over time, her presence grew heavier. She lost a job, she fought with her family, she needed help moving, she needed advice, she needed support. And Logan always showed up. Not dramatically, not romantically, just consistently. Meanwhile, my needs started feeling like inconveniences. If I wanted a quiet weekend in, he'd say we already had plans. If I suggested seeing my friends, he'd point out we'd just seen them last month. If I brought up feeling overwhelmed, he'd remind me how much worse Mia had it. "She literally has no one," he said once when I asked why he'd canceled our dinner to help her. "You're strong. You'll be fine." Strong. I wore that word like armor, like proof I didn't need anything. But strength has a limit. The Thanksgiving text crossed it. Because it wasn't just that he wanted to bring his ex-girlfriend. It was that he decided it was happening before I even knew it was an option. He didn't ask. He informed. He didn't say, "What do you think?" He said, "Deal with it." And once I saw that, I couldn't unsee it. Sitting alone in our apartment that night, after booking the trip, I looked around at the space we shared. His shoes by the door, his jacket on the chair, his mug in the sink. Everything about the place screamed partnership. But partnership doesn't look like unilateral decisions. It doesn't look like being volunteered into emotional labor without consent. It doesn't look like your family being treated as a resource for someone else's guilt. I thought about my parents. My mother planning the menu weeks in advance. My father cleaning the grill like it was a ritual. My sister rearranging her schedule to be home. Thanksgiving wasn't just a meal to us. It was a gathering, a statement, an unspoken, "You belong here." And Logan had decided to insert someone else into that space without even checking with me. That told me exactly how he viewed my role. I wasn't a gatekeeper. I wasn't an equal. I was a facilitator. And for the first time since we'd started dating, I let myself ask a question I'd been avoiding. If I said no, would he listen? The answer came back immediately. No. He'd already proven that. The next few days passed slowly. Logan texted about logistics like everything was settled. "What should Mia wear? Casual or dressy?" "She's excited to finally meet your family." "We're picking up pies Wednesday." I didn't respond. Not because I was playing games. Because I was watching. Watching how easily he assumed my silence meant agreement. Watching how comfortable he was moving forward without me. By Wednesday morning, my suitcase was packed. And by then, I wasn't questioning my decision anymore. I wasn't angry. I wasn't hurt. I was resolved. Because the pattern was finally clear. And once you see the pattern, pretending you don't becomes impossible. By Wednesday morning, everything had already been decided. Just not in the way Logan thought. He moved through the apartment like it was any other holiday prep day. Phone in hand, keys on the counter, that faint sense of purpose he got when he believed he was being useful. "Mia's going to swing by around noon," he said casually while pouring coffee. "We'll leave for your parents' place by 1. I didn't answer right away. Not because I was stunned, because I was studying him. The confidence, the assumption. The way he spoke like my presence was optional, like I was a detail that could be adjusted later. He noticed the silence and glanced over. "You good?" "Yeah," I said. "I told you I'd let them know." That satisfied him. He nodded, already mentally checking something off his list. "Cool. Thanks." "Thanks." As if I'd just agreed to pick up extra napkins. He left for work shortly after, giving me a quick kiss on the cheek. No tension, no suspicion, no sense that anything was wrong. Because in his mind, nothing was. The door closed behind him, and the apartment went quiet. That was when I sent the message to my mother. I'd already drafted it in my head a dozen times, tested the tone, stripped out anything that sounded dramatic. "Hey, Mom, something came up with work. Emergency server migration over the holiday weekend. I won't make it to Thanksgiving. Logan might still come, though. I stared at the screen for a moment before sending it. Not because I felt guilty, because I felt oddly detached, like I was watching myself do something inevitable. When her reply came back, warm and immediate, it landed exactly where I expected. Oh, honey, that's awful. I know how stressful your job can be. Logan is still welcome, of course. We already bought his favorite wine. I didn't reply right away. I sat there, phone in my hand, picturing her in the kitchen. The counter already cluttered with grocery bags. The mental checklist she'd been running since last week. And suddenly the idea of showing up to that house, with Logan, with Mia, pretending everything was fine, felt impossible. That wasn't avoidance. That was self-preservation. I set my phone down and opened my laptop. The travel site loaded faster than I expected. Warm destinations filled the screen. Palm trees, clear water, the kind of places people went to escape winters and responsibilities. I didn't overthink it. 5 days, Wednesday night to Sunday. Far enough away that no one could stop by. Far enough that no conversation could be forced. I booked it. The confirmation email slid into my inbox with a soft ping that felt final. I used the money I'd been setting aside for Logan's Christmas present. The watch he'd pointed out twice in the last month. The one he'd laughed about saying, I don't really need it, but you always know how to spoil me. I closed the tab and leaned back in my chair. My hands were steady. That surprised me. I'd expected at least a flicker of panic, a spike of doubt. Instead, there was only clarity. The kind that settles in once you stop trying to negotiate with reality. That afternoon, Logan's messages started coming in. What kind of pies does your mom like again? Mia's asking if your dad is formal or chill. She's nervous, but excited. I didn't respond. Not out of spite, because there was nothing left to say. By the time Logan came home that evening, my suitcase was already half packed in the bedroom. He didn't notice. He was too busy talking about traffic, about how tired he was, about how nice it would be to finally have a normal holiday. Normal. He stood in the doorway while I folded clothes. You excited? He asked. For Thanksgiving? I said. Yeah, I know this whole thing with Mia is awkward, but I think once we're all together, it'll be fine. I looked up at him then. Really looked. At the man who thought awkwardness was the problem. At the man who thought proximity would solve disrespect. At the man who still hadn't asked me a single question. I'm sure it'll be memorable, I said. He smiled, missing the weight of the words entirely. That night, I changed one more setting on my phone. I turned off my read receipts, not to be cruel, to give myself space, because I already knew what was coming. The questions, the confusion, the irritation, the slow realization that something wasn't lining up, and I needed distance when that happened. Wednesday night came quickly. I left the apartment while Logan was still in the shower. My suitcase rolled quietly behind me. I paused at the door for half a second, scanning the familiar space. This was the home I'd thought I was building something in. But homes don't feel like battlegrounds. At the airport, my phone buzzed. Where are you? Logan texted. Mia's almost here. I didn't answer. By the time my plane lifted off the runway, my phone was already filling with messages I wasn't reading. And for the first time in months, I felt light. Not relieved. Not happy. Just free from the responsibility of managing someone else's choices. I'd said I'd let them know, and I had. Just not in the way he expected. Thanksgiving afternoon arrived while I was sitting by a pool, the sun warming my shoulders in a way that felt almost unreal for late November. I didn't check my phone right away. Not because I was trying to punish anyone, because for the first time in a long while, I wasn't bracing myself for the next problem. When I finally did look, there were dozens of notifications waiting. Missed calls, messages stacked on messages. I scrolled slowly, not reading yet, just noting the timestamps. They started early. Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening, Wednesday night. By Thursday morning, the tone had shifted. That was when I opened the first one. Hannah, where are you? Your mom says you're not coming. She said you have to work. You didn't tell me. The next message followed immediately. I'm here, with Mia, alone. This is really awkward. I pictured it instantly. My parents' front door. The wreath my mom insists on hanging every year. The smell of turkey already in the oven. My dad probably adjusting the volume on the TV even though no one was watching it. They'd been expecting Logan. Just Logan. Another message came in. Your dad asked Mia if she was my girlfriend. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was inevitable. The messages kept coming. Faster now. Your sister is staring at us like we did something wrong. Your mom keeps asking why you didn't tell me you weren't coming. She's asking why Mia is here. I told them you said it was fine. That line made my jaw tighten. You said it was fine. I hadn't said that. Not once. Another message. Your dad looks pissed. Mia wants to leave. This is your fault. I locked my phone and leaned back in my chair, staring at the bright blue sky overhead. This was the moment where everything he'd assumed would hold together didn't. Later, my sister filled in the gaps. She called me that evening after they'd left. "Hannah," she said, not even bothering with a greeting, "you are not going to believe what just happened." "I probably will," I replied. According to her, Logan showed up right on time, Mia beside him, both carrying pies like props in a play they hadn't rehearsed. My mom opened the door smiling. "Oh, hi, Logan," she said. Then her eyes shifted. "Who's this?" Mia stepped forward first. "I'm Mia, Logan's friend," she corrected herself quickly. "Hannah said it was okay." That was when my mother's expression changed. Not angry. Confused. "Hannah isn't here," she said. "She has to work. Didn't she tell you?" The color drained from Logan's face. My sister said it happened fast. The realization, the recalculation, the sudden awareness that something didn't line up. Logan tried to recover. "Oh, right, yeah, she mentioned that. I must have forgotten to say it." But my mom had already caught the contradiction. Because Mia had just said I knew she was coming. And now, apparently, I hadn't even told Logan I wasn't coming. The math didn't work. They invited them in anyway, because that's who my parents are. But the damage was already done. Dinner was uncomfortable in a way that couldn't be smoothed over with small talk. My dad asked Logan about work. Normal questions at first, then sharper ones. He asked Mia what she did, where she lived, how long she and Logan had dated. 4 years, she said. "Why'd you break up?" my dad asked, carving the turkey. Logan hesitated. Mia answered. "He cheated," she said lightly, like it was an old joke. My mom's fork paused midair. No one had known that. My aunt, who had already had a glass of wine and never filtered herself properly, leaned forward. "So let me get this straight," she said. "You brought your ex-girlfriend to meet your current girlfriend's family, but your girlfriend isn't here." Silence. Mia tried to change the subject. Asked about football. Nobody responded. "My family doesn't watch football." According to my sister, Logan barely touched his food. Mia ate a lot, took leftovers, called my mom Mrs. Pierce, even after being corrected. They stayed for 2 hours. 2 hours of side glances, clipped responses, and the slow realization that they didn't belong there. When they finally left, my mom texted me, "We need to talk about Logan." I didn't reply. Not yet, because I already knew what that conversation would be. I checked my phone one last time that night. Logan had stopped texting. The silence told me everything. Whatever version of Thanksgiving he'd imagined, where everyone would handle it, where things would magically smooth over, had collapsed under its own arrogance. And I hadn't had to raise my voice once. I put my phone face down on the table and went back to watching the ocean. Because somewhere between the sun, the quiet, and the distance, I realized something else. I wasn't running away. I was letting consequences arrive exactly where they were supposed to. I didn't hear from Logan again until Sunday night. I'd already flown back, unpacked, reset my apartment to look exactly the way it had before I left. Neat, neutral, untouched. The kind of space that doesn't invite emotional chaos. That was intentional. I was standing in my kitchen when my phone lit up on the counter. Logan. I let it ring. Then again. And again. By the 5th call, I picked it up, not because I felt pressured, but because I was ready. "Where were you?" he demanded the moment I answered. No greeting, no pause, just accusation. I leaned against the counter, arms folded. "I went on a trip." "A trip?" His voice rose. "You disappeared for 5 days. You left me alone at your family's Thanksgiving." "I didn't leave you," I said evenly. "I told you I wouldn't be there." "That's not what you said," he snapped. "You said you'd tell them about Mia." "No," I corrected. "You told me Mia was coming and to deal with it. So I did." There was a brief silence on the line. Not confusion, not remorse. Calculation. "You humiliated me," he said finally. "Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was?" I almost smiled. "You brought your ex-girlfriend to my family's holiday without asking me," I replied. "You humiliated yourself." "That's not fair," he shot back. "Mia had nowhere to go." "That wasn't my responsibility," I said. "And it definitely wasn't my family's." "You could have talked to me," he said. "Instead, you ran away." "I removed myself from a situation you created without my consent," I said. "That's not running away. That's setting a boundary." He exhaled sharply, like he was trying to keep his temper in check. "My mom thinks you're trash now," he said. I didn't react. "Your dad barely spoke to me," he continued. "Your sister looked like she wanted me gone." "What did you expect?" I asked. "You showed up with your ex instead of me." Mia was mortified, he said. She felt attacked. "Good," I said. That made him pause. "You're being cruel," he said. "No," I replied. "I'm being honest. You put everyone in an impossible position and assumed I'd clean it up. He was quiet again. Then his tone shifted. Lower, controlled. We're supposed to be a team, he said. Teams don't do this to each other. Teams don't make unilateral decisions, I said. Teams don't say deal with it and expect compliance. You're overreacting, he said. This didn't have to be this big. It was big the moment you decided my opinion didn't matter, I replied. He let out a breath through his nose. So what, he said. You think you're just done? I looked around my apartment. The silence, the order, the absence of tension. Yes, I said, I am. There it was. The moment everything tipped. He didn't shout, he didn't beg. He laughed once, short and disbelieving. You're breaking up with me over Thanksgiving? I'm breaking up with you because you don't respect me, I said. Thanksgiving just made it obvious. That was when his voice finally cracked, not into tears, but into anger sharpened by disbelief. You're heartless, he said. No, I replied. I'm done being convenient. He hung up on me. I didn't block him. Not yet, because I knew this wasn't over. People who lose control don't disappear quietly. And Logan had just realized, too late, that I wasn't the person he thought he could manage. Monday morning started like nothing had happened. That was the strangest part. I woke up at my usual time, made coffee, dressed for work. The world outside my window looked exactly the same as it had before Thanksgiving. Cars moved. People rushed. Life continued. But the dynamic between Logan and me had shifted completely. And he couldn't accept that. By the time I reached my office, I already had 3 missed calls and a string of messages. Can we talk in person? This feels unresolved. You can't just end things like this. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have answers. Because I'd already given them. Around noon, my phone rang again. This time it wasn't Logan. It was my mother. Hannah, she said carefully. Logan called me this morning. I closed my eyes for a moment. What did he say? He wanted to explain, she said. Said there was a misunderstanding. That you were stressed with work and forgot to tell him things. I let out a quiet breath. And what did you say? I asked. I told him the truth, she replied. That you told me days in advance you weren't coming. That he showed up saying you knew about Mia. And that those 2 stories don't match. There was a pause. He didn't like that, she added. I imagined it easily. Logan, confronted with a version of events he couldn't rewrite. He said Mia had nowhere to go, my mom continued. I told him that wasn't our problem, and that bringing an ex-girlfriend to a family holiday without permission is deeply disrespectful. I smiled faintly. He hung up on me, she said, which tells me everything I need to know. That afternoon, the next phase began. Logan went public. He posted a long message on social media about compassion, about helping someone in need, about how some people can't handle discomfort and disappear when things get hard. He didn't use my name. He didn't have to. People knew. Comments flooded in. Some supportive, some questioning. Then my sister saw it and commented. Compassionate would have been asking Hannah before bringing your ex to our family's Thanksgiving. She didn't disappear. She removed herself from a situation you created. The comment was deleted within minutes. Screenshots weren't. By the time I left work, my phone buzzed with messages from extended family. Aunts, cousins, even my grandmother. Not asking what happened. Telling me they were proud of me. That evening, Logan tried a different tactic. He showed up at my apartment. I heard the knock while I was cooking dinner. Firm, insistent. I didn't open the door all the way. I kept the chain on. We need to talk, he said, frustration tight in his voice. We already did, I replied. You can't do this through a door, he said. I can, I said, and I am. His jaw tightened. You embarrassed me in front of your entire family, he said. No, I replied. You embarrassed yourself. He stared at me like he didn't recognize me. This isn't you, he said. You're right, I said. This is me when I stop accommodating disrespect. For a moment, he looked like he might argue. Then he changed strategies again. His shoulders dropped slightly. His voice softened. Mia's been through a lot, he said. I was just trying to help. And I was supposed to absorb the consequences, I replied. That's not how partnership works. He didn't answer. Because there wasn't one. When he finally left, he didn't slam the door. He walked away stiffly, like someone who had lost something, but didn't know how to admit it. I locked the door, turned the deadbolt, set my phone down. And for the first time since the text arrived, I felt something settle. Not satisfaction. Not revenge. Finality. By Tuesday, Logan had stopped pretending this was a misunderstanding. That was when the anger gave way to desperation. I could tell by the way his messages changed tone. Shorter, sharper, less polished. You're being dramatic. This is ridiculous. You're really going to throw everything away over this? I didn't respond. Not because I didn't care. Because I finally understood something important. Responding was what kept the cycle alive. Logan didn't want resolution. He wanted leverage. So he tried something else. He showed up at my workplace. I was just stepping out for lunch when I saw him standing across the plaza, hands in his jacket pockets, posture stiff. He didn't look disheveled or emotional. He looked controlled, intentional. That was more unsettling than if he'd looked upset. "Hannah," he called when he saw me. I stopped walking. People moved around us. Colleagues, strangers, the noise of the city carrying on, but suddenly the space between us felt too small. "You can't be here," I said. "I just want 5 minutes," he replied. That's it. Security was already watching. I could feel it. I didn't want a scene. 5 minutes, I said, outside, then you leave. We sat on opposite ends of a bench near the building entrance. He brought lunch, like it was a peace offering. Set the bag between us. "I thought we could talk like adults," he said. "We already did," I replied. He exhaled slowly, like he was choosing his words carefully. "I've been thinking," he said. "We both made mistakes." I didn't react. "I should have asked about Mia," he continued. "But what you did was worse. You blindsided me. You humiliated me." There it was again, always the same center of gravity. His embarrassment, his image, his discomfort. "This isn't about Mia," I said calmly. He frowned. "Then what is it about?" "It's about you thinking you can make decisions for both of us," I replied. "It's about you telling me to deal with it like my opinion was optional." "That's not how I meant it," he said quickly. "How did you mean it?" I asked. He hesitated. She was in a bad place," he said. "I thought you'd understand. You're usually easygoing." Easygoing. The word landed exactly where it always had. Not as a compliment. As an expectation. And in that moment, everything became clear. "You thought I was a pushover," I said. He stiffened. "That's not fair." "It is," I replied. "Easygoing doesn't mean disposable. It doesn't mean you get to volunteer my family or my silence." He shook his head. "You're twisting this." "No," I said. "I'm finally seeing it." He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "So that's it?" he asked. "You're really ending this?" "Yes," I said. He stared at me, searching my face for hesitation. "There wasn't any. You're choosing your family over me," he said. "I'm choosing myself," I replied. "You made it a competition." His jaw tightened. "You're making a huge mistake," he said. "Maybe," I said, "but it's mine." We sat in silence for a few seconds. Then he stood. "This isn't over," he said. "It is," I replied. He walked away without looking back. That afternoon, I blocked his number. Not out of anger, out of clarity. Because the line had been drawn, and for the first time, I didn't feel the need to step back over it. If the breakup had ended with that bench outside my office, it might have stayed clean. Painful, but contained. Logan didn't know how to leave things contained. Thursday evening, my phone rang while I was folding laundry. It was my mother again. "Hannah," she said, and this time there was no softness in her voice, just alertness. "Logan is at our house." I stopped folding. "With Mia," she added. "Of course he was." "Do you want me to tell him to leave?" she asked. "I trust you," I said. "Handle it however you see fit." She put me on speaker. I heard the front door open. Heard Logan's voice, strained but rehearsed. "Mrs. Pierce, I just wanted to apologize in person. There's been a lot of misunderstanding." "There hasn't," my mother said calmly. "You brought your ex-girlfriend to our Thanksgiving without Hannah's knowledge or consent." "I thought Hannah understood," Logan said. "She didn't say no." "She didn't say yes," my mother replied, "and that matters." Mia spoke up then. Her voice was thinner than I expected. "I didn't mean to cause problems, I just had nowhere else to go." "That's unfortunate, Maish," my mother said, "but it doesn't entitle you to our family holiday." Logan tried again. "We just wanted to make things right," he said. "Hannah overreacted." That was when my father stepped in. "She reacted appropriately," he said. His voice was even, but firm. "You disrespected her and our family." There was a pause. Logan's tone shifted, defensive now. "This didn't have to end like this." "It ended the moment you told my daughter to deal with it," my father said. "That's not how you speak to someone you respect." Mia said something under her breath. I couldn't make it out. Then my mother spoke again. "We're asking you to leave," she said. "Now." "This is a misunderstanding," Logan insisted. "No," my father said. "This is you refusing to accept consequences." Another pause. "You're not welcome here," my mother added. "If you don't leave, we'll call the police." That did it. I heard footsteps, the door closing. My mother exhaled. "We told them not to come back," she said. "And if they do, we'll file trespassing." "Thank you," I said quietly. After we hung up, I sat on my bed and stared at the wall. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt settled. Because something important had happened. The people who loved me had drawn the same line I had. Logan didn't have access to my family anymore. Not to their home, their traditions, or their patience. And without that access, he had nothing left to stand on. The next day, I heard through my sister that he was telling mutual friends I'd chosen drama, that I'd blown things out of proportion. But the story didn't land the way he expected. People asked questions, uncomfortable ones. You brought your ex without asking? You told her to deal with it? The narrative fractured, and once it did, he lost control of it. That night, I slept deeply. Not because everything was resolved, but because the consequences were finally moving on their own, no effort required from me. 3 weeks passed after Thanksgiving, long enough for the shock to fade, long enough for the story to settle into its final shape. That's usually how these things go. At first, everyone wants details. Then, time does what it always does. It clarifies. Logan tried to control the narrative in the beginning. He told mutual friends that I'd panicked and disappeared, that I'd chosen my family over our relationship, that I couldn't handle his compassion for someone who was struggling. Some people nodded politely. Most didn't, because once people asked even one follow-up question, the story collapsed. So you didn't ask Hannah before bringing your ex to her family's Thanksgiving? And you told her to deal with it? Those two facts were impossible to spin. My friend Janet told me about a dinner Logan organized to clear the air. He wanted to explain his side, to present himself as misunderstood. It didn't go the way he hoped. When he finished talking, there was a pause. Then Janet said, "I'm just trying to understand. Why didn't you ask her first?" Logan started explaining again, about timing, about stress, about how he assumed it would be fine. Janet interrupted him. "Yeah," she said, "that's the problem." Apparently, half the table nodded. The other half stayed quiet. Nobody defended him outright. That silence was louder than any argument. Mia didn't disappear from the story either. 2 weeks after the breakup, word got around that she and Logan were spending a lot of time together again, that she'd been staying over, that she'd helped him through the breakup. Eventually, it came out that she'd moved in. The same apartment Logan had once complained felt too small for 2 people. That irony didn't escape anyone. My sister relayed the information with dry amusement. "Looks like Thanksgiving solved that mystery," she said. I didn't feel jealous. If anything, I felt validated. Because if they'd slipped back into each other that easily, then my instincts hadn't been paranoia. They'd been pattern recognition. My family turned the whole thing into a story. Not in a cruel way, in the way families do, by reclaiming power through humor. My cousin made a group chat joke about the Thanksgiving without Hannah. My aunt suggested we add a rule next year. No exes allowed. My grandmother, who rarely weighed in on relationship matters, surprised me one afternoon when she said, "A man who tells a woman to deal with it will eventually deal with her absence." That stayed with me. Logan sent one last message. Not a text. An email. Long. Carefully written. Framed as closure. He talked about how hurt he was, how his reputation had suffered, how people now saw him differently because of what happened. He never apologized. Not once. At the end, he asked for reimbursement. For the pies he bought, for gas, for emotional distress. I read it once. Then I closed it. I didn't respond, because some messages don't deserve answers. I blocked his email address. That same week, I updated my work profile. New title, new responsibilities, a small but meaningful step forward. Life didn't transform overnight. It stabilized, and that mattered more. By the time December ended, the story had already fossilized. People stopped asking me how I was doing, not because they didn't care, but because I looked fine. Better than fine. Steadier. Like someone who had set something heavy down and kept walking. Logan didn't vanish. He hovered. I found out later that he'd viewed my professional profile more than once in the same week. Then Mia did too, close together, like checking a scoreboard. I updated my title shortly after. Not out of spite, out of accuracy. My parents, on the other hand, leaned into tradition with renewed enthusiasm. At Christmas, my mom made a point of saying, "Just family this year," and then paused before adding, "unless you want to bring someone appropriate." My dad nodded solemnly. My sister raised her glass. It was a joke, but it wasn't. It was a boundary turned into a ritual. I started dating again after New Year's. Nothing dramatic, no declarations, just coffee dates and conversations that didn't feel like negotiations. I met someone at the gym. His name was Daniel. Quiet confidence, direct without being dismissive. When I told him the Thanksgiving story, he laughed. Not cruelly, but in disbelief. "He really brought his ex without asking?" he said. "That's not compassion. That's entitlement." I asked him what he would have done. "Same as you," he said, "though I might have gone to Europe." That was when I realized something important. Healthy people don't need convincing. They hear a story like that and immediately know where the line is. Logan and Mia made things official shortly after. Or maybe they never stopped being something unofficial. It didn't matter. They could have every Thanksgiving together from now on. Takeout, a small apartment, the echo of a decision that had consequences neither of them anticipated. My family still talks about that holiday, not as a disaster, as a turning point. The year their daughter chose herself. Looking back, the relationship didn't end because Logan brought his ex to Thanksgiving. It ended because of 3 words. Deal with it. Those words told me everything I needed to know about how he saw me. Not as a partner, not as an equal, as someone expected to absorb whatever he decided. So I did deal with it. I removed myself. I let the consequences land where they belonged. And I learned something I'll carry with me into every relationship that follows. When someone shows you they don't respect you, believe them. Don't argue, don't negotiate, don't explain. Just step back and let reality do the work. That's not avoidance. That's self-respect. If you've made it this far, thank you for staying with this story. Stories like this don't go viral because of drama alone. They resonate because almost everyone has had a moment where they ignored a red flag just to keep the peace, where they were told, directly or indirectly, that their comfort mattered less than someone else's convenience. If this story felt familiar, you're not weak, you're human. But remember this, boundaries aren't punishments. Silence isn't avoidance. Walking away isn't losing. Sometimes the strongest move is refusing to participate in disrespect at all. If you've ever been put in a situation where you were told to deal with it, share your thoughts in the comments. I read them. Others do too. You might help someone realize they're not alone. If you enjoyed this kind of slow burn, emotionally grounded storytelling, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. More stories like this are coming. Take care of yourself, and never apologize for choosing self-respect.